The first and most obvious thing that we need to do, obviously, is to change our mindset and realize why we have to come together and cooperate in this new world. And one of the things I found quite interestingly as I was doing some research on the book was a speech that Bill Clinton gave in 2003 in Yale. And he was clearly ahead of his time. What he said in 2003 in Yale was that if America believes that it will always be number one, then fine. It should carry on doing what it's doing, maybe act unilaterally. It doesn't matter because America will always be number one. But then he added, but if we can conceive of the possibility of us becoming number two, then surely it is in America's national interest to create a rules-based order that will then constrain the next number one. I mean, that's perfectly sensible national interest for America. And the remarkable thing is that even though he said it in 2003, that hasn't become discussed or mentioned by anyone in America. And I've also come to discover that it is actually almost impossible in America to have a discussion of America as number two. And I know, I tell you, the confirmation came in all places in Davos. In January, and I described this in the book, in January 2011, I was asked to chair a forum on the future of American power. And there were two Republican senators, Corker and Chambliss, a Democratic Congresswoman Nita Lowry from here, and Michael Froman, the Deputy National Security Advisor. So as chairman, I asked the first question, obvious question, what do you see as the future of American power? He said, oh, we'll be number one, we'll be number one, we'll be number one, we'll be number one. So I said, yes, okay. Then I added my second question. I said, you know, I've seen some statistics, some IMF statistics which say that possibly within the next 5 to 10 years, you know, America might have the second largest economy in the world. And I can tell you their responses were absolutely shocking to me because I discovered that none of them could have any words, no politician can have any words coming out of their mouth saying, when America becomes number two or if America becomes number two, you cannot say it. And the smartest guy was clearly Senator Corker. He said to me, in response, he said, Mr. Chairman, I can do the maths too. I can see where you're taking us, but I'm not going there. And I quote his response verbatim in the book. He could see what's happening. And you know, what's stunning is that so few people are aware that, you know, in PPP terms, the American share of the global GNP was 25% in 1980, and China's share was 2.2%. China's share was less than 10% that of the United States in 1980. Now in 2017, which is only 3 to 4 years from now, the IMF has projected that the United States share will go down from 25% to 17.6%, and China's share will rise from 2.2% to 18.2%. So it will be a different world. So in this different world, the one plea that I make, especially to Western audiences, is that now is the time to rethink your old policies. And one of the, I think, most fundamental mistakes that Western countries have made in recent times is that they have somewhat unthinkingly carried on with an old policy of keeping multilateral institutions weak, because the assumption was that the West was so strong, so dominant, it didn't need multilateral institutions, and therefore it kept them weak. And I actually think in this new world, where the West clearly is going to become a minority, 12%, in a resurgent world, it is actually in the national long-term interests of all Western countries, including the United States of America, to now work towards strengthening rather than weakening multilateral institutions. So I'm not appealing, I know at the end of the day I do talk, as Joanne says, about ethical considerations, but I begin by saying it's in your rational self-interest to do this.